Hey, what's up, Gorehounds? So tonight I'm going to be doing my supernatural horror films then and now video. So I'm going to be comparing supernatural horror films with the more classic films starting from around the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and comparing them to the supernatural horror films of today. All right, so I'll start with the older films. The first film I have on my list is Rosemary's Baby. It was made in 1968. So the film is basically about a woman named Rosemary who gets basically raped by the devil. And what happens is she's having what she thinks is a dream, and she's surrounded by all these people in robes who are chanting, and she doesn't know what's going on, and sort of in a dark room on a bed. And suddenly they tie her to the bed, and they're all chanting. It turns out they're Satan worshippers, and suddenly this beast that you can't really make out, but it sort of looks kind of scaly, and there's not really any way to describe it, but you can't really make out this beast. This huge thing jumps on her, and again, it's a movie made in 1968, so you don't see much during the scene, but it rapes her, and when she wakes up in bed with her husband in the morning with scratches all over her. So she thinks, how could, maybe it wasn't a dream or whatever. But then her husband just sort of says, "Oh yeah, I was a total animal in bed last night," and so forth. So she kind of thinks, okay, maybe it was a dream. Then maybe it didn't really happen. But then she starts to get pregnant, and of course she thinks it's just her husband's baby. But as the movie progresses, it turns out that she starts showing abnormal signs during her pregnancy, things that a normal pregnant woman wouldn't do. I'm not going to go into any detail because this movie, Rosemary's Baby, isn't as popular a film. So I know a lot of people out there haven't seen it, and it's one that you definitely should go see. Especially if you're young like me, you probably haven't seen it. I have, but yeah, I definitely recommend going to see it. It's very creepy, very well done. And just to give you an idea of what the film's like, I'm going to show you basically just a video of people talking about the film, and towards the end of the clip, people talk about the rape scene in particular and how it influences the rest of the film, just how creepy it is. Here's the clip.
Something could go wrong when you give birth, there could be any number of things, and this is the ultimate thing that could go wrong.
What are you going to do when you look into the bassinet and you see your child for the first time and it's the devil?
There's this like special beautiful bond between a woman and her baby that she gives birth to. I think like if your baby has like, black devil eyes and horns and a tail, the bonding is kind of hard.
The Dakota, which is probably one of the scariest buildings architecturally in America. Those gargoyles, that corner, Central Park, Strawberry Fields Forever, and all that.
Without the music in Rosemary's Baby, it wouldn't be nearly as scary.
You saw her absolutely surrounded by all these people that could very easily break her.
When you first find out that there are these devil worshippers at play, that gets you.
I don't like those kind of things where you're like, the whole world is against you. Like she Mia Farrow was screwed, man. That whole apartment building was after her.
It's because that guy wanted to make it as an actor. That's why.
Typical New York co-op board.
The doctor tells her, take these pills, don't ask questions, don't read books. Oh, okay, no problem.
I think people can definitely relate to that, to men who are stronger saying, "Darling, you're just overwrought, why don't you lie down?" And the devil will come have sex with you. It's happened to all of us.
The scene in Rosemary's Baby, I guess when she gets drugged up and gets raped by the devil, that can't be fun.
The rape scene is just awful. It's just awful. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if it's real. You're experiencing it like she did.
It's all shot at a vertiginous angle, like you're not quite sure what's happening, and I think that that's what makes it more horrifying, is it is sort of suggested and it's very dreamlike.
Dream, this is really happening.
When she wakes up the next morning, she thinks it was a dream.
And she then discovers scratches on her body, and her husband says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was a bit of an animal last night." And that's really clever, because the film is like a dream, and at the end of it, you can't quite remember what you have seen, but what you imagine seeing, and that is smart filmmaking.
All right, so the next film on my list is Poltergeist, made in 1982. And basically the idea of the film is this family moves into a nice suburban location, and turns out it's haunted by poltergeists, spirits, right? And it turns out, this isn't really explained, and this is kind of why Poltergeist isn't one of my favorite films, but it turns out only a little girl named Carol Ann, the youngest daughter, only about 5 years old in the family, can lead these poltergeist spirits into the light, so to speak. So basically, free them from the spirits, from how they're captured or ensnared here on Earth, and let them be at peace in the afterlife or whatever else. And it's a creepy movie. It's got its moments like where Carol Ann's talking to the television, and it starts having a conversation with her. You don't actually hear the television saying anything to her, but she listens intently and responds, and it's kind of a creepy scene. It's just the blue glow of the light reflecting off of her face, and the rest of the room is dark otherwise. So yeah, it's a creepy movie overall, but the scene I'm going to be showing you is the only scene that really got to me when I saw it when I was a little kid, and that's the face peeling scene. So, here we go. All right, and my last classic supernatural movie on my list is actually a movie that's based on a novel by Stephen King. The novel and the movie are both called It, and anyone who knows anything about this novel slash film knows that it's about an evil clown who basically goes around killing kids. You know, as horrible as that sounds. The thing about this film, you might be thinking, how could this be a supernatural film? Just from what I've said about it, it sounds more like a slasher. The thing is, it isn't really a slasher film because it's not what you'd think when you immediately think of an evil clown that goes around killing kids. You probably think of a clown with like a bloody knife or a chainsaw or something along those lines. That's not what it is at all. The clown actually sort of psychologically torments the kids, and he it's almost like always a question throughout the film, whether or not he's a product of the kid's imagination or whether he's real. And he sort of dwells down in the sewer, and the kids can always see him, but none of the grown-ups can. So it's sort of like, is he real? Is he a supernatural entity that can make himself visible only to young kids if he chooses? Or is he just a product of the kid's imagination, and it's all part of growing up? That's sort of what makes the film great. And the same thing with Poltergeist and Rosemary's Baby. You're sort of, at least in the beginning with Poltergeist, and definitely throughout with Rosemary's Baby and It, you're questioning the film, whether or not it's real, and that's what gives it its power, I think, and what makes it effective. So for It, the clown lives in the sewers, stalks and kills kids. Only they can see him. And the clip that I'm going to show you that coincides with this is the drowned kids in the sink clip. This is a very creepy clip that has to do with a girl, what's her name? Beverly, I think? Bev? I'm not sure if that's her name. Seeing or hearing things from the sink, and I won't describe the entire clip, I'll just show it to you. So anyway, here's the drowned kids in the sink clip.
Legs, Carson.
Help me. Help me, please. Help me. Help me, Beverly.
Hello? Is someone there?
The clown brought us down here. We all afloat.
Who are you?
I'm Vicky Burrows. I'm Matthew O'Connor. We're all the dead kids. Come closer, Beverly. We all want to meet you. We love float. Daddy!
In the name of heaven!
The bathroom, Daddy, the bathroom!
Was someone peeking in at you, girl?
The sink! In the sink!
Well, what is it you think you saw? Speak up, girl. I worry about you, Biffy. I worry a lot. Now explain yourself.
There was a spider. A big fat spider. It crawled out of the drain, and I guess it crawled back down again.
Now, these buildings are old. Drain's the size of the Holland Tunnel. There's nothing there now. Get to bed.
Say hello to your friends, Beverly. Die if you try to fight us. You'll die if you try. You'll die.
All right, so that's it for my classic supernatural horror films. So now I'm going to move on to a few modern ones and kind of show you the differences. So my first modern one, this is probably one of my favorite modern supernatural horror films that's come out in the last few years. It's Paranormal Activity, came out in 2009. It's basically about a couple who move in together, and the woman has a haunted past because as a child there was a demon stalking her, and she actually left the house and tried to get away from this thing, and it hasn't really happened much since with her new boyfriend that she's moved in with, who's named Micah, or Mika, I think. But things start happening, obviously, and they start actually recording it. They set up a camcorder on a tripod in their room, recording the bed to see if they can pick up any strange things. And then each night, it's almost like one of those really realistic movies where it is one of those realistic movies where all of the shots are made to look like amateur footage, just made of by the two main characters, Mika in particular, filming his girlfriend and inadvertently starting to capture the strange things that are happening, and then they start filming it on purpose, seeing all these weird things. So the film mainly centers around what happens at night, and with each scene that pops up, they'll say night number 6, 3 a.m. in the morning, and then it'll show you a clip of something weird that happens. Usually it'll just be something very subtle, and that's what again makes it effective, like the sheets rustling slightly, but the windows are closed, there's no wind or draft, or the door moves slightly. But the scene I'm going to show you is actually a scene where the woman gets dragged out of bed, and then her boyfriend Mika chases after her, and yeah, it's one of the scarier scenes in the movie. So here it is. All right, and the very last movie on my list here is Insidious, made in 2010. The basic storyline, without getting into too much detail, is one of the kids of a family that lives in a suburban area gets into a coma, and he falls into a coma, but actually where he's gone to, as the parents, the couple, find out later, is into a spirit world called The Further. And this is where spirits sort of congregate, I guess. It's kind of similar to Poltergeist in a lot of ways, now that I think about it. And some of the spirits, most of the spirits are apparently good, and they don't want to hurt the kid, but there's apparently a few that are insidious, as the psychic person tells the couple, and they want him for whatever reason. Again, it's not really explained, similar to Poltergeist in that sense. And so the scene I'm going to show you from this movie is where they actually see one of the quote-unquote insidious spirits for the first time, who's later, I think he's only ever referred to as the man with the red on his face, which doesn't really describe him that well, other than he kind of looks like Darth Maul from Star Wars. He's got red in his face, which you wouldn't think would be that scary, but because the movie relies a lot on jump tactics, shock tactics, and jump scares, it's scary for that reason. So anyway, I'm going to show you the first scene where this demon or spirit or entity pops up. So here it is.
What's happening to Renee is real. I've seen it for myself. I came today because last night I had a dream about this place. I was in this house, but it was late at night. I was afraid. I went into your bedroom, but you were both asleep. I knew I was asleep in the dream, but I could feel that someone was awake in the house. I went into Dalton's room. There was something in there with him. It was standing there in the corner. I asked it, "Who are you?" And it said it was a visitor. I said, "What do you want?" It said Dalton. I can still hear that voice.
What?
All right, so those were all the films on my list, and basically what I'd like to say about them is supernatural horror films back in the day didn't rely so much on shock tactics, as I hope you can see from a lot of these clips, and particularly they didn't rely so much on jump scares. Because with all of these movies, I've showed you what are considered to be some of the scarier scenes, and as you can see from films like Rosemary's Baby, Poltergeist, and It, the scary scenes don't have to suddenly have something jump out at you all of a sudden to make you jolt. Because to me, that's one of the cheapest type of scare tactics that you could use. And supernatural films didn't have to do that. They could sort of weird you out back in the day. They kind of slowly built up to, in a really ominous way to something horrible that was happening. And they were a lot more claustrophobic for it. Whereas with modern films like Paranormal Activity and Insidious in particular, they're so reliant on jump scares, it kind of feels like the directors or writers are just sort of going, there's a big scary thing, but there's no build up in a lot of cases to what's to the scare, and that kind of ruins it. That doesn't, like, yes, jump scares are frightening, but I find it a lot better when there's ominous atmosphere and when the jump scares are kept to a minimum. Because the scariest movies are the ones that sort of haunt you slowly. They don't just jolt you. They don't necessarily make you jump. So for that reason, I think supernatural horror films were a little bit better back in the day than they are now. They're certainly not bad now, but they are a little more cliche. I will say this, though. Slasher films back in the day I thought were excellent, and now slasher films suck beyond belief. They're terrible. That's not quite the case for supernatural horror films. I think supernatural horror films have degraded in quality a little bit, but they still are scary simply because of the fact that the fear of the unknown is one of the oldest fears known to humankind. You know, like even when we were basically like evolving as apes pretty much, and we would be, hiding from saber-toothed tigers in caves and whatnot, and we would hear a sound out in the darkness, and our brains were still evolving, millions or, many years ago, and we wouldn't know what it is. That fear of the unknown is stronger than any other fear. For that reason alone, I think supernatural horror films are very effective. More effective in a lot of cases than just a maniac brandishing a chainsaw in your face. But again, the jump scares, particularly with Hollywood films like Insidious or like Paranormal Activity, take away from it. They take away from the slow and steady build-up of terror. They really do. So that's my consensus, is that supernatural horror films, modern ones aren't bad, but they were better when they didn't rely on shock tactics. They were better back in the day. So anyway, I think that's a good note to end on. And yeah, if anyone who watches these movies that I make, if that's anyone at all, has any ideas about or requests of what you would like me to do next, you can leave me a comment and I will consider it. Anyway, I will see you later, YouTube.